Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lamar White Jr. It's been a while since I've done one of these videos, about a year or so. So to those of you who have been supporting me on Patreon, thank you for your patience. I have quite a bit to update you about on the progress I've made, particularly as it relates to my book project on Carlos Marcello, the longtime reputed New Orleans mafia boss. I've been working on this book for about 3 years, the life, times, crimes, trials, tribulations, and triumphs of Marcello. The One of the most obvious updates that I have is that I've obviously changed the working title, as you may notice. The book is no longer called Big Daddy of the Big Easy. It is now called The Original Gangster, The American Saga of Carlos Marcello. This to me is much more appropriate. For one thing, it's widely believed that New Orleans was the birthplace of the American Mafia, the original Mafia syndicate. There are disputing versions of this early history, however. Some claim the Mafia arrived before the Civil War. It's probably not accurate. Others believed it first appeared toward the end of the 19th century. And to be sure, there are differing notions of what exactly mafia means. As a proper noun with a capital M, mafia specifically refers to the secretive international criminal organization that began in Sicily sometime in the mid-1800s. But mafia with the lowercase m, at least in America, is a catch-all colloquialism for organized crime. For the purposes of my book, I trace the word's arrival in New Orleans to the apprehension of a notorious Sicilian bandit, Giuseppe Esposito, a fugitive from justice in Sicily who had been hiding out in New Orleans for about a year in 1881. Esposito was arrested on the street outside of Jackson Square near St. Louis Cathedral by two cousins, Dave and Mike Hennessy, and the case drew headlines all across the world. It turned Dave Hennessy, then only 23, into kind of a celebrity cop. Anchoring the narrative in this arrest and in Esposito's apprehension allows me the ability to focus on the subsequent assassination of Dave Hennessy, who was promoted to chief of police in 1890. His death was perhaps the earliest, most high-profile murder that was mafia-related or associated with the mafia in American history. And the subsequent trial of the multiple men associated with the plot or conspiracy to assassinate him resulted in acquittals and in mistrials, and ultimately inspired a massive protest. Some 8,000 or so people gathered in New Orleans the day afterward, including a well-armed mob that stormed the Orleans Parish prison and murdered 11 Italians in cold blood. This was a flashpoint in American history and in the history of organized crime in America, and it introduced the word mafia into the American vernacular. The title is also appropriate because, as Huey P. Long once said of himself, Carlos Marcello was sui generis. There was no one quite like him in organized crime. He operated by a different set of rules, and part of the country that seemed utterly foreign to the mobsters that ruled and dominated big cities like New York and Chicago. And Marcello ruled without any real opposition for nearly 40 years. This book has taken me a bit longer than I anticipated for a few reasons. First, as I discovered, practically everything previously written about Marcello's life, including most notably the 1988 bestseller Mafia Kingfish by John H. Davis, is utterly unreliable and full of falsehoods, misrepresentations, and unsubstantiated speculation. Second, because I have increasingly recognized the need to place Marcello within the context of his time, this meant investing a significant amount of my own time researching 20th century history in New Orleans. And finally, thirdly, because just within the past year or so, I have obtained a significant amount of new information that previously had been unknown or publicly unavailable. In December of 2022, for example, the Biden administration released 13,000 files related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. And I was able to find a number of those files related to Carlos Marcello. In addition to that, most recently in 2023, there were more documents released by the Kennedy Assassination Review Board, another 2,500 or so. And this year, in April, I received a response from the FBI, a FOIA request I filed 2 years ago, approximately 1,500 pages worth of information about Marcello the FBI turned over that were very, very helpful. I was not able to get the transcripts of Marcello's secretly recorded conversations that were used during Operation Brylab in 1979 and 1980. The FBI informed me that they had destroyed their copies of those transcripts, unfortunately. In addition to that, I've also uncovered a 4.5 hour long audio recording of Marcello's former lawyer and longtime friend Mike Maroon. Shortly after Marcello died in 1993, Maroon took to his dictaphone and started dictating notes for a planned memoir he was to write about his life with Carlos Marcello. He had represented Marcello and had known him as a friend for nearly half a century, including, by the way, spending about 2 weeks with Carlos Marcello in the wilderness of Guatemala after Marcello was kidnapped and whisked away by the American government and sent to Guatemala, deported to Guatemala on the pretense of fraudulent documents and misrepresentations to foreign officials. Guatemala then deported him, and Maroon happened to be in the country at Marcello's request. Together, they fled from Guatemala City to the capital of El Salvador, and then to the capital of Honduras, Tegucigalpa. And for the first time, I think, anywhere, at any time, I've been able to figure out exactly how Carlos Marcello snuck back into the United States, something that has been mysterious to even the United States government for all of these years. I am now finally confident that I've accumulated as much as I possibly can, and my work can be adequately sourced and reliable. Carlos Marcello's story, in my opinion, is one of the most fascinating untold stories of the past century. It's a story about the blurred lines between the upper world and the underworld, about the makings of celebrity. It's about what it means to be an American. It's about an uneducated immigrant born in a country that no longer exists, who somehow was able to outwit, outmaneuver, and outlast the American government at nearly every turn. It's also a story about the machinery of fear and gossip and conspiracy, and how it can distort our history and can be used as a weapon against a person who has already been vilified before anyone ever really knew their name. In the next months, I will be completing the book, and I hope you will consider supporting my work here on Patreon. This year happens to be the 30th anniversary of Marcello's death, as well as the 60th anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. So to that end, support the book and my work. I have developed a new website, carlosmarcello.org or carlosmarcellobook.com. The new website contains will contain an excerpt from the book. It already does contain a gallery of photographs that I've colorized, some of which have never been seen before by the public. In addition to that, I plan on uploading a series of documents, basically showing you my homework in a download section on the website, where you'll be able to find and browse through the same files that I've accumulated over the last 3 years. So thanks for listening. I want to just emphasize that I'm doing this completely on my own. I don't have the support right now of a major publisher. I'm waiting to shop the book around until it's ready, and it's almost ready. But until then, I really do need your support. At the $50 a month level, you're guaranteed to receive at least 4 different presents from me, at least one every 3 months. A t-shirt, a coffee mug, and other goodies that will be sent to your house. So I encourage you, if you can, to donate at that level, but at any level, it helps. It absolutely helps. So thank you for listening. I appreciate your support and your patience with me. And until next time, ciao.